Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Joy Learning TV.
Once again, welcome back to what I always say, Joy Learning. We keep learning. Now, this is a different episode altogether, and then as we are almost getting to the close of the year, we need to do something and get some education knowledge here and there to be able to actually enjoy the Christmas in as much as we also enjoy watching Ghana and then the whole Qatar experience. Now, before much ado, let's go straight to the topic for today's discussion. So I'll go straight and then we learn, and in as much as we are learning, you know, today is Thursday. It's just a day ahead of what we intend to do again and over again to Uruguay. This time, my dear, we are going to kill them like hot. All right, let's go straight to it. My name has always been Opoku, and I'm always your science facilitator as far as junior high schools are concerned. Today, the topic for discussion is waste management. Waste management. By now, I know you are talking about why is it so important for we to actually manage our waste. It is very, very important in doing that because it actually solves so many environmental problems, as well as it doesn't also bring about so many disease and all that. So as you can see, a very good or clear picture on your screens whereby somebody is trying to actually get the rubbish from the bin into a different container or rubber so that it can be taken away. Actually, whatever you have here, it's a medical setting. So when they discard of certain medications or when they expire, they can't actually treat patients with those things. So it must be discarded or probably kept somewhere else. And then the best way by which they do it is, at times they need to actually make a dugout and then they put it there, they burn it or they cover it, and so many things happen to them. So let's see what I have for you today. Now, before we go to the intricacies of this whole waste management thing, let's now try to know the objectives for today. So by the end of the lesson, the learner will be able to, one, explain the term waste. You should be able to know what waste is. Two, identify the three types of waste. Three, explain the term waste management. Four, pictures of 4 sites identified for the management of waste. We also talk about identification of waste management practices, their description, and what is the reality as far as science is concerned behind all that. So what is the science behind it, or what are the scientific principles behind whatever waste management we speak about? So waste can be any material that is not needed at a particular place at any point in time. So if, let's say, I have a wristwatch and I feel that, fine, this wristwatch is not needed within this time frame. And so in as much as I don't need it, I don't want to keep it for probably some years to come, but I want to discard it, then I can actually boldly say that that wristwatch that I don't want to use or is not needed at a particular point in time becomes waste. That is, waste is any material or substance which has been disposed of or thrown away, or intended to be thrown away because it is not needed at that point or particular point in time. Waste may be in the form of liquid, solid, or gas. So you can have various forms of waste, it being liquid, solid, or gas. Waste can as well be defecation, use water in washing the hands, smoke that comes as a result of cooking, discarding or throwing away of unwanted clothes, burning of things. So all these are classification or types of waste under which all what I've mentioned can be classified. Now, whenever you actually cook and then you have in it water that you want to discard off from your kitchen or throw away, it becomes waste. For example, if you are preparing some sumptuous and mouth-watering delicacies of, let's say, some bangkung and then some pepper with some egg and some fish and all that, or maybe you don't like that but you want to go for tim. When I say tim, I'm just referring to some fufu and some goat meat and all that. You know, when we love all these things and we do them, definitely there will be water waste which must be thrown away or discarded. On a daily basis, we manage waste in our communities using different practices. Some of these practices include burning the waste, throwing the waste away in the bush, in gutters, and waterways. Putting the waste in a container for it to be collected by some vehicles, etc. So all these are ways by which we do manage our waste, our home, or wherever we find ourselves. Most of the waste management practices we use in our communities cause pollution and diseases and also destroy our environment. Do you know that a disease called Bruley ulcer is very, very detrimental as far as the human body is concerned? Somebody will ask, what is Bruley ulcer? It is very, very dangerous. An organism that is known as ulcerans is actually the causative organism for the disease Bruley ulcer. And then when you actually consume any water that has been there for, say, so long, you may say that if water is consumed or water is kept at a place and consumed for probably a week, a month, or 3 months after, it's still the same. We have water, and then we have water. That is why in our local parlance we say that he wouldn't have known that there are different kinds of water. We have the hot, and then we have the warm. So if you have, let's say, sachet water, bags of sachet water, and then you keep them under the scorching sun, and then they are always there, the sun scorches on them for months or for years, and then you want to consume that, my dear, the best way for doing this is just to discard them. Other than that, you may contract a disease that if you're not careful, you're going to spend your entire fortune in actually trying to treat yourself. Other waste management systems found in our communities and elsewhere include composition, or what we mostly call compaction. And then we have landfill, recycle, and other ones. We will also go deeper into these ones and then know what each of them is. So we have a dumping site, and this is a very clear picture that majority of you watching me, and then those who are far away from this origin of this locality of Ghana can actually attest to it, that you have other slums or other areas in your nation, your community, or wherever you find yourself, whereby you have something like this, a pile of that. This clearly tells you that the area has been so many or number of years where the composition and then other dumping of refuse has occurred for so many years. From the look of things, you can actually see clearly different variety of items, and then you can boldly see that we are seeing plastic waste from this. And because plastics do not actually go through decomposition, they take very, very long years before they can decompose. It becomes very, very difficult for that to be controlled. If I'm given a chance or the mandate to do one thing in Ghana, one thing that I would love to do is that, because I also teach science, I would love every indigenous or everybody who happens to either be a citizen or one way or the other find him or herself in Ghana to have a safe life. When I say safe life, I will just bring a law that will be enforced so that everybody, every place in Ghana will also stop this plastic waste, whereby you go to buy something from a grocery shop and your items are kept in plastic bags. The best way to go is to go buy paper bags, because with them, in as much as you can use them over and over again, it can be reused. It's very easy to bend them. What happens when they are plastic? It is very, very bad. And one thing that I find it very difficult even understanding is the fact that people even go out to buy food in plastic containers, like takeaway bowls. They are plastic. My dear, let's know what is good and what is bad to save our lives and save Ghana as whole. Now let's go to the topic and then see what we have to do. So now when we talk about composition of waste organic material, this is what it's all about. So now, this may be a farmer or somebody who has a backyard farming in his or her house and would want to actually do something. It doesn't actually mean that you should always do this for your, say, your cocoyam or your plantain or your cassava. No, you can actually do them also for your flowers. Okay, so this is just different organic waste that are being placed on the soil for decomposition. So when all these things decay, what happens is they add extra nutrients, or they are able to provide extra nutrients to the soil. So when this happens, then voila, you're good to go. You are seeing egg shells. They are also another good thing that every soil needs because of the nutrients we have therein. Now, burning of waste materials in the open. Most people burn waste materials in the open. How bad is that? Let's see how bad that can be. What do you think will happen when, say, the place where the rubbish is dumped for several years is just burnt to this level of aggregate? It means that there'll be volumes and massive quantity of carbon dioxide being introduced into the environment and specifically into the atmosphere. And when that happens, all human beings and other living organisms wouldn't have any other choice but just to take in the same thing that are being introduced into the environment. And when that happens, it is very, very detrimental to our lives because it's going to cause so many respiratory and other diseases that may not be good for our whole body system as humans and then the other lives. How do we management of waste and their scientific principles? So let's go straight, hit the screens and see what they are. The first one is that we have what is called landfill, a landfill. As we go on, you definitely know what a landfill is. So what is the description of landfill? I know when I say landfill, something actually jumps or comes into mind. Hold it on. Sit tight. We'll go deeper. Now, landfill basically means, when you go to the description side, it means burying waste in a well-engineered structure in the ground. So landfill doesn't mean that you just throw rubbish here and there. No, you need to make a very big dugout whereby you employ engineers to make structures within the dugout to protect lives so that whatever waste you have there wouldn't seep through water bodies, wouldn't also cause environmental degradation or environmental problems in the next years to come. So this must be well-engineered structure. You don't need just a layman to do that. No, it needs experts who have that expertise to go through this process to have a well-done landfill site. So what is the scientific or science behind it, or scientific principle behind this whole thing? Waste substances that are prevented from coming into contact with the air, which control the decaying process. So whenever waste products are actually kept in a confined area so that there wouldn't be any passage of air or air going into it, they prevent or control the decaying process. Have you realized that when you just throw waste or you just dump waste in an open place, with time, you can actually get the stench that emanates from where the waste was thrown or dumped? Reason being that it actually, when the wind blows over it, it speeds up. There's always a chemical reaction with the oxygen in there, and because air is not only a mixture of only oxygen, it has oxygen, it has other noble gases, it has nitrogen in different percentages. So what happens is that when all these air comes around it, it actually increases the rate at which whatever you have there called waste will decompose. It makes it faster, and then as it gets rotten, then it spreads across the whole environment, which is very, very bad. At times, you are seated in the comfort of your home, but you can't even breathe because the stench that you are actually taking in at the comfort of your home because of what somebody dumped somewhere very close to your house, it's so bad to the point that you can't even sit at home. This practice does not generate very bad. This practice does generate very bad odor and also cause pollutants. So when it's well engineered, then it means that there wouldn't be any bad odor emanating from that. But when it just shown haphazardly, then definitely the bad odor coming from. So when I say this practice does not generate very bad odor and other pollutants, they're talking specifically about the well engineered structure that is laid out or prepared for a landfill site. And if a landfill site has all this in place, then there wouldn't be any odor of any kind coming from that site. Now, let's go to the second one, which is also called composting or composting. Composting. What is the description behind here? Converting organic matter into plant manure. And this is the picture that we saw earlier in earlier display here. So composting of waste organic materials. So a bit of this, a bit of that, and all these must be organic materials. Organic materials are obtained basically from plant and animal sources. And because they can decay or they can get rotten, they add nutrient to the soil. I know in your various schools, you may have gone through the whole process of compost. Let me take, say, 2 minutes of my time to run you through. When we say compost, it simply means that if I'm a farmer or if I am a horticulturist, I love flowers and I want to just say add nutrients to my land to help me grow my crops or to help me have nice and beautiful flowers. All that I need is that I make a dugout. After the dugout, what I do again is I go for logs of wood. The main reason why I want to put logs of wood horizontally into the dugout is because when it rains, I don't want whatever I want to put on the log of wood to be soaked by the water. So I go for huge or bigger logs of wood, put them horizontally on the dugout or inside the dugout. And then if I have a black big rubber, I make sure I put that on top of the log of wood. But I'll be very, very glad if that rubber can be perforated. So it means you punch or you create holes in there so that in case it will even rain on whatever you're trying to build, the water that will go in there can seep through and go through the holes and then get into the dugout. Now, after that, you also go for any organic material that you have. It can be, let's say, parts of plants. It can be dried leaves. It can be egg shells. It can also be ashes. Whatever you think can decompose. Please, no plastics, no rubbish of any kind. None of those. Then pile them up and then you add whatever you want to have and then you cover it. For about 3 months, because you've covered it, there wouldn't be any air going in or coming out. So the whole stench or whatever you have in there will be built in there. And then because it's a long time of 3 months, whatever you have in there can decompose. And then you have your rich source of nutrients for either your flowers or your crops, physically or beautifully. And then you go on with that. If you are going for, say, so many fresh materials, let's say green leaves that are not dried yet, then it means that you have to actually elongate or prolong the time from, let's say, 3 months, about, say, 6 months. The longer you keep it there, the more or the better it's able to decompose or decay for you to get whatever you want, because it wouldn't be nice for you to transfer your manure that you want to actually use on your farm or on your soil or wherever on your flowers, whereby it is partly baked or prepared. You want the whole thing to decompose nicely, and then you transfer it, and then voila, you're good to go. So that is how it is done, as I've taken you through the whole process of compost preparation. Now, let's go to the description or the scientific principle behind the composting. The waste substances are prevented from coming into contact with air, controlling the decaying process, as I explained to you. If you allow air to go through it, it elongates the whole process of decay. So you just cover it up, and then you retain whatever air that has already entered to be there forever and ever, till the whole period that you have actually chosen or scheduled for yourself to elapse. And then you can get your rich nutrient or your rich compost for your plants. This practice does not generate very bad odor and also do not also pollute or result in any other pollutant. The reason being that it has been kept, okay, it's been covered. So you have a sealed up compost that you're trying to build, whereby the whole air will not blow right to take the pollutant into other areas, probably where they are not needed, to worry people who are enjoying lives in their comfort of their homes or wherever they find themselves. Now let's go to what is called incineration or incineration. Now, whenever you hear incineration, it's just a very huge structure in which waste is burnt. So as I go through with you, you know the intricacies. The description of the incinerator or incineration is where burning of organic waste in controlled environment. It's not whereby you just throw rubbish around and then you want to gather them and then burn them in the open. It doesn't happen that way. There is something extra that happens with this whole incineration process. Reason being that you're going to get something else from the whole process, which as we go on, you'll definitely get to know all that. Scientific behind it is that the waste substances are prevented from coming into contact with the air, which also controls the decaying process, absolutely, as I've said already in composting. Then we go to the other one, which is called recycling. Recycling. Now, I want to just take you a bit further or a bit forward for you to know what we're doing. We spoke about landfill, we came to composting, and then we are on recycling. What is this whole process? What does that mean? Recycling means reusing waste generated in homes, communities, and in schools. How does that happen? It means that if you have any school around your community, you see what is called segregation of waste, whereby in a school you see dustbins that have been labeled, whereby you see plastics, you will see organic or foods, you will see paper, you will see glass. It means that whenever, say, you have a glass material which you want to discard off, you can't just put the glass into the organic or the food that's been, neither can you put it into the paper that's been. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So you use the right thing into the right bin. Now, when they come, or when those people come to collect these bins, what happens is that they need to recycle whatever they have there. If it's organic, if it's foods, let's say leftover food or whatever you have, they just gather them together. Some even use those things to feed other farm animals. But if they don't want to do that because probably there's no farm there, then what they'll do is that they'll rather do what is called composting, whereby they'll add it with other leaves or plants, and then they actually have a sealed up compost that will help them on their farms. Now, what is the whole scientific principle or science behind this whole recycling process? Reducing the amount of waste in the environment by cutting down the production of new materials. Now, when we do this, where do you think our dear nation Ghana will be? When we reduce, or we just reduce the amount of things that we produce because we want to just reuse or change what have been used already into a different thing. If you can remember, I remember a couple of years ago, there were people who moved from homes to home, school to school, and community to community, just because they want to pick up empty sachet rubbers. Ask me or ask yourself what those things were being used for. I remember I also saw on TV a man who had used this empty sachet rubber to actually make a raincoat. Some even went to the extent of using them to make umbrellas. And I was highly impressed. I was like, yeah, that is Ghana for you. Go, 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 Ghana. That was a brilliant thing. But unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I don't know whether the idea is just died off or probably they need financial support. So please, if they need it, please let's come together and help those people so that the rabbits that are actually flying on our streets, in our homes, and at times when you are dressed up going somewhere, and then before you realize you are hit by something, and before you tend to see that thing, it's just a rabbit that's been soaked in, I don't know whether it's water or it's oil flying on the streets. It's something else. It's so very bad. Now, let's go into details or deeper to know what a landfill is. This process of waste disposal focuses attention on burying the waste in the land. An ideal landfill is a structure that is carefully designed to ensure that waste is buried in such a way that it will not pollute the groundwater or water supply. So, like I said earlier, it is a well-engineered built structure. It's not like you make a dugout and then you just deposit or throw your rubbish here and there. No. You make something so that whatever you have in there as waste would not contaminate the soil or not contaminate or get into any water body that probably we may actually use at home, and then that will also bring a different ball game altogether, whereby we have to face water problems and all that. So it's a well-engineered thing whereby the whole waste is stuck in there, not going away from anything. The science behind the use of the landfill is to prevent waste from coming into contact with air. This prevents decaying that generates very bad odor, air pollutants, greenhouse gases. What are greenhouse gases? Have you heard of a gas called methane before? Have you heard of a gas called carbon dioxide before? What is greenhouse gas or greenhouse effect? It's simple. It simply means that when there's so much deposition of carbon compounds into the atmosphere, whereby plants or trees cannot absorb all these carbon compounds that are supposed to be used by a plant to prepare their own food, and then in return, give us fresh oxygen to breathe. What happens is that all these carbon compounds and the methane get up and then they trap heat. So when that heat is so much exerted onto Earth, then it results in something called global warming. And global warming simply means that the whole Earth will have a tremendous increase in temperature. And when this happens, luckily for us at the other side of the world, when I say luckily for us, because we don't experience snow in Ghana, we don't experience sleet in Ghana, neither do we experience hail in Ghana. Nor is it hailstones. We don't have those experiences. So what happens is that when we go to the other side, that happens to be outside the tropical regions where they are experiencing temperate areas. And I'm talking about those people that experience these 4 seasonal seasons or sea areas. When there's so much global warming, then it means that all the ice in those communities or areas must melt. And it melts, and at times it's so funny to the extent that these things can actually take people's cars away. Can you imagine when a big, huge metallic car has been taken off because of a runoff of ice that has gradually melted? It's very, very bad. Now, whenever landfills are not well structured, they bring about air and water pollution. And because you don't want the whole garbage or the whole waste to seep through the soil and then get through the water and also contaminates something else. And then, when that happens, listen, let me tell you one thing. Every living organism on earth, regardless of you being a human being, a plant, or an animal, depends solely on water for survival. If you know, and if you don't know, I'll put it to you on record that the whole human being or the whole human anatomy consists or is composed of 70% of water. So it means that we need so much water in our system. And in as much as we do that, we don't want to harm ourselves by taking contaminants or water that is contaminated. So as we go on, this affects the environment negatively and can create health problems for plants, humans, and animals. Voila, I just mentioned this. One bad waste management practice related to landfill is dumping. Dumping. Dumping can be in any form or so many forms, whereby people go make dugouts and then they dump rubbish in there without any well-engineered structure that could just retain the waste for yesteryears or number of years. When that happens, we go through decomposition, and then rubber or plastics do not go through decomposition. Yes, it is very true that when there is so much heat and pressure being exerted onto where we dump our rubbish or waste for so many years, there is great heat that is created underneath, and that results in these natural gases, crude oil and all that. It doesn't mean that we need crude oil, so we should kill ourselves at the expense of we getting crude oil. No way. That is a no, it wouldn't happen. So then, if we want to dump our waste, we need well-structured areas or well-structured creations of people who have the expertise, like the engineers and other people who can do this and do them so well, so that this waste cannot actually seep through water bodies and then kill us before we kill ourselves. This type of waste disposal system is practiced in places where there is no waste management system. I don't know, but I've heard it before, whereby somebody can pack waste into a polythene bag, and before you realize, something is flying like a bird. Before you open your eyes, it's not a bird, it's a polythene bag that has been flown away by somebody else. It's a very, very bad habit. In dumping, solid waste is either disposed on the bare land or in a dugout hole. There are many dangers associated with this system of waste management. When the solid waste decomposes or rots, it generates bad odor that causes discomfort in the neighborhood. Also, flies may feed on the waste, settle on food substances and other surfaces in our homes, and cause diseases. Cholera is there. Don't think it doesn't kill. It does kill. My dear, our lives on earth are, you might think that when we see somebody is 90 years, 90 years on earth, that is good. You've been blessed. He's been blessed because in as much as God has showered his abundant grace and mercies on us, he also led a very careful life. We should tread cautiously so that we can actually keep ourselves for the man who gave us life. Also, flies may feed on our waste. Yes, when they feed on your waste and they come to your house, you can remember we went through what is called, I'm trying to see whether you can remember the topic that we did, where we learned how these flies are able to eat, or how they are able to slurp solids or liquids from fruit and all that. You see, when all those things happens and then we just dump rubbish here and there, they go and feed on them and they come back to pay us in our own coin because we just dumped rubbish or other waste materials very close to us. Now, what is incineration, or what is called combustion? Whenever you hear combustion in science, it means burning. Let it burn, burning. Incineration or combustion is a type of disposal method in which solid waste are burnt at a very high temperature in order to change them into residue and gaseous products. Let me take it once again in very slow notes. Incineration or combustion is a type of disposal method in which solid wastes are burnt at a very high temperature in order to change them into residue and gaseous products, which are very, very useful. These are the gaseous products I'm talking about. Incineration or burning is normally done in a built structure called incinerator. So it's not like what we do whereby you can burn your waste anywhere here and there. You may be thinking you're just burning your waste because probably people are not around. But remember, it is a gas and it travels like magic. And to those people who burn their waste very, very, very deep in the night, around 10 that way, please, when people want to enjoy the comfort of their homes at night, they mostly open their windows because they want to actually have a feel of the fresh oxygen that is emanating from the sea. But when you burn your rubbish or you burn your waste, you are causing environmental havoc. which is detrimental to the lives of every living organism. So please, and a very big please again, let's stay in tune with what we do to help other people. This method is usually adopted in countries with limited landfill space or landfill sites. So they burn in incinerators, very big structures whereby they wouldn't, or the gas wouldn't go to other people to disturb them or cause havoc. During incineration of waste materials, waste is changed into ash, flue gas, and heat. In some incinerators, the heat energy, this is where I love most. Please pay attention to this. In some incinerators, heat energy is transformed or metamorphosed or changed from the burning waste into some other useful energy forms. So if they are burning their waste here, they have certain mechanisms in place that will be able to change the whole heat energy into other forms that they need in their country for nation building. I know, Madam Anita, the social studies, I thought, I just felt it in a blink of the eye that you actually university students, you know, the social studies, Madam has been taking you through pollution. I've heard it over and over again because I do watch her a lot. So it's in line, you see how the subjects are just intertwined. Okay, this one helps, or this one is in there like that. The incinerator method is useful for the management of solid waste, infectious hospital waste, and solid residue from waste and solid residue from waste water treatment. So it is not a matter of you just discarding of waste because you want to do it. Do it the right way to save yourself from diseases and save your neighbor. Even if you don't like him or her, save their life. One bad thing about incineration is that the burning process produces some poisonous gases and carbon dioxide, causing greenhouse effect again. Now, what is greenhouse effect? Kwabena? Kojo? Ama? What is it? It simply means that when there's so much infrared radiations in the atmosphere, and these infrared radiations are in the form of methane, carbon compounds of so many elements or compounds that are very, very bad in our environment. When they go up, what happens is that they champion the whole air that we take in. So they now trap heat and they give us the heat. And the heat that will be trapped by these things are what results in what is called global warming, whereby the whole atmosphere, the whole nation, the whole earth becomes so warm to the point that you can hardly breathe. And then before you realize, countries at the other sides experience what is called flooding. Waste can also be managed through the reduction of the amount of waste created. So if you want to manage waste, you should think about how best to reduce the waste creation. Also, reuse of waste materials. We need to do what is called reuse, whereby if I have something, I can use it over and over again and stop the flying rubbish in a street of Ghana. It's very, very shameful, my dear. I need to say it, and I'm saying it on a fact because majority of us have experienced it over and over again. It is a very bad habit. And then recycling of waste items. So we need to recycle waste items. If I have plastics, we can just recycle them, like what I saw last time on TV, whereby people had used the empty sachet rubbish to make umbrellas, to make raincoats, and then other things. I mean, they were nice. People actually went to the extent of using them to make rubber shoes, which are very, very good in times when we are in the rainy season. I mean, in the rainy season, you don't expect to walk majestically with your boots on that thing, but you need rubber shoe because of rubber boot. That is good. These ways of managing waste are referred to as the 3 R's. 3 R's. Now let me ask you again. 3 R's. I know you're talking about recycle, reuse, and then recycle, reuse. The next one I'll ask you next time I come. Managing waste through waste production or minimization. How do we also do that? This method involves a set of processes and practices meant to reduce the quantity of waste produced. So when you have so much waste and you want to reduce them drastically, you adapt to this. Through the reduction of the waste generated, very minimal or zero waste is generated. In order to encourage waste reduction, certain products and processes need to be redesigned. We need to reshape and redesign certain things to suit the environment to ensure that we reduce waste drastically. So that very limited waste is produced during the consumption of products. If you need to consume something, think of how best to reduce waste. And we come to recycling. This is a process of converting waste materials into new products so as to avoid excessive use of energy and use of fresh raw material, which I didn't mention earlier. The rationale behind waste management by recycling is to minimize energy usage, which is one, decrease the volume of landfills, reduce both air and water pollution, and also preserve natural resources for future use. Now, this unfortunately, as it's becoming lighter and nicer to interact with you almost every time, then the clock is ticking. Now, the whole meeting today was about waste. What is waste? How best you can manage waste. I did mention that composting is one, recycling another. We should always have a landfill site. And you just don't get up and say, I want to build a landfill site. You need a well-engineered structure. Now, what is a well-engineered structure? You don't just do it because you are not an expert in a field. You need to employ the service of somebody who has the intricacies to be able to do it and do it well, because the water you think is very close to where you dump your rubbish, it is not only the water for you, but it's for everybody here in Ghana. So to actually help a neighbor, to also help another neighbor, to help the entire neighborhood and the whole nation, we need to go strictly according to this. Always remember there are 3 R's, which are recycling, reuse. Like I told you, the last one, I'll ask you again when I meet you at the flip side. So I come into your homes again. My name has always been Opoku. And I say bye-bye and good luck.
Channel Joy Learning TV.